Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So this afternoon we are starting the anti-abuse session. So the idea of starting to drive work around anti-abuse on different perspectives, from education perspective, from technical perspective, from policy perspective, came a while ago when at AfricaCERT we start receiving some feed. And when we were doing with those feed is trying to correlate them and sending to countries. But we found out very early in the process that they were not doing, most of them were not taking action around it. So we start looking at various initiatives that could help us drive good behavior and possibly put some incentive behind to encourage good behavior. And that's where I met with Yuri, who was driving the Cybergreen initiative, and she will talk about it. Then we met also a couple of actors like Jim Kumru, etc. Mark. Unfortunately, Jesse was not able to make it at this meeting. And then we also learned that ICANN was doing some work around anti-abuse. And what I would like to take out from this discussion that we're going to have is, first, what can we do in terms of education to drive, again, good behavior in the continent and globally? What should we do in terms of policy to get policymakers engaged in the discussion so that in their own ecosystem, they can work with, first globally, but also they can work locally to have things done. And as a community, how could we come together to touch the different stakeholders, first being able to identify them, and how we can work together to touch the different stakeholders to drive this initiative. Something worked the last 2 years at a small scale in some countries, but you will tell me that those countries are probably a little bit advanced. We were able to define some not specific, but we were able to define initiative which will help, like for example, CERT teams to give a kind of label to the ISP at the Internet Exchange Point, the CTLD, as good citizens. It has helped to create some dynamic in those countries, but we believe that it's not enough, and it is probably something that we would like to see at a global scale in the country. So I will leave the floor to Yuri. Who will talk to us about the Cybergreen initiative. Welcome. So for you who don't know the history of Yuri, I think that we've been working together since 2006. Yuri was one of the first persons that came early to our meeting. And I remember what she said that day in a very directive way. I am here
Very demanding.
to get a point of contact in every country. So Yuri, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to use a couple of slides. Hello.
Hello.
My name is Yuri Ito. Hello again. I'm from Cybergreen, and I also am part of a great club later, great, club later with AfricaCERT, partly JP-CERT as well. Cybergreen is a US-based non-profit organization. We work and we focus on trying to improve the cyber ecosystem healthiness. So we focus security approaches, not from the traditional cyber security approaches, but we are applying a public healthcare or environmental approach to see the cybersecurity problems and then try to identify what's the root problems underlying that we see a visible incidents. And then we try to improve that by measurement and mitigation. So how many people heard about my Cybergreen talk? I know some of you at the AfricaCERT meeting were with me. So I'm trying to not to be repetitive or talk about the same thing. And then also GFC is a great supporter for the Cybergreen. GFC put the global best practices, that was 2 years ago. Cybergreen is one of the global best practices to focusing on the systemic risks and then improving that by through metrics and measurements. So you can take a look at the GFC website and then download the global best practices, and there's what we are doing. But today, what I'd like to pose is a couple questions inspired from the morning discussion. So this morning, the group discussed about the best practices, how to convince the policymakers to decide to implement or deploy best practices, and then how to bring the stakeholders to right decision making, or policy decision making. So I'd like to throw these two key questions for the sake of discussion today. The first one is, how do you communicate? How can we communicate effectively and motivate decision makers? How many people are technical people here, technical community here in the room? And then how many are Alan?
Now I'm government.
How many people are policymakers here?
I like policy.
Oh, okay, so it's a great, a half and half. So so Cybergreen's mission is bringing the data and evidence data and metrics to be a bridge between the technical community and the policymakers. Because the policymakers use a different language, technical community use a different language, and they tend not to speak each other really well. So we need some common language between two. So one of the approach that we thought is useful is use metrics-based measurement and statistics. And then addressing that to the policymakers. But that's one of our approach, and I would love to hear from you, the policymakers, and then you, the technical community, what else do you think we can do to communicate well between two different communities? The other thing is, same thing, but what do you need? What do we need to motivate non-technical policymakers to understand and sign off the action? When I was at JP-CERT, I talked this about this at the AfricaCERT meeting. But when I was JP-CERT 10 years ago, I was notified by some group that, hey, Japan has a large number of open DNS, and a significantly large number. And then they put the DDoS ranking metrics and then sent it to us. And then it was pretty bad. So we communicated with our sponsor, Menti. And then that time, the first question was, hey, how are we doing comparing with other countries? How are we doing compared with Korea and China? It's very easy to say, hey, we're actually worse than Korea. And then they're like, okay, we'll have to do something immediately. Cross comparing with countries, exactly. Comparing with other countries is not necessarily about the competition, but really understanding where you are. Rather than just saying that, hey, we have 50,000 open DNS, servers in .jp. There goes like, hey, what does it mean? 50,000 open DNS. What does it do? And then we'll say, well, that could be the DDoS protection attack infrastructure. This could attack to anybody, and then this could be posing the risks to other countries as well. And they're going to say, yeah, those numbers are sometimes misleading and dangerous, and it doesn't really make sense to policymakers. So the community really needs to get together, think about what does it speak. So, one of the approach we decided to do that time is, let's take a look at the public healthcare community and then see how they use the data and metrics to speaking and changing the global policy community. And so we started from there. By the way, so key questions. To talk between and then have the policymakers to sign off the best practices, what I hear this morning was a couple of things. Like, the gentleman there, you speak about the business case. It's a business, it's the economy. So we need some business cases. It's not just this is good, but it's in how, financial ways, economic ways, how does it help to your business? So we need some business case. And then we also have a market incentives. But unfortunately, in this today, we have a significant, serious market failure at the moment. Devices, makers, vendors, network operators, service providers, when they're adding a security performance, it doesn't really make sense, adding the value at the market. So users are not buying security, services, and then it's partly a lack of awareness. But unfortunately, we do have this market incentive. We do not have this market incentives. So, with this situation, what else we can do? As a global community, we can try to develop this market incentives, but also we can think about the right policy and regulations probably. And that's, the policymakers' roles is going to be very big. We all need to be creative to somehow develop these incentives. And then John Robert talks about this tracking improvement. It's a recognition of the good behavior. So mitigating the systemic risks or reconfiguration of the servers, that costs a lot of resources. If you're not recognized, nobody recognizes your good behavior, who would be motivated to do that? So there's someone needs to, tracking the improvement and then recognize that and then encourage the community to follow. I was looking at one of it was actually United States statistics. I think it was about 2017, there was a significant drop of the OpenSSDP tracking, the trend dropped. So we look at that, and then if you go to the, this is a Cybergreen website. You can't see.
It's all green.
It's all green. So this is our website, and it's not very the right size here. But if you go to our website, and then you can have all the country statistics. I just looked up the Japan. If you can type in your country and then see the statistics. I didn't put it up the United States, but you go to, for example, Japan, and then you would see. So this is a whole DDoS possible horsepower by open recursive, number of open recursive plus amplification factor, calculating a possible maximum DDoS horsepower here, and then put the world ranking. World ranking number 11 is pretty bad. Japan has a lot of potentially bad DDoS attack infrastructure hosting in a country, so we really have to do something.
Explain the jump.
The jump here,
July.
right? So this is actually our scan. We changed the scan speed from the fast scan to the slow scan, which is meant to be not to harm the network operators. So we do instead of a fast UDP scanning, we spend 1 week to slow scan. So with that, some significant changes happen. But anyways, when you see this type of significant jump, spikes or drop, you want to know why is it. And then one of the things that I wanted to introduce is okay. Now I want to get back to. So, looking at the United States, OpenSSDP 2017 dropped like 70% of them. And then we were wondering, why is that? What happened to this? And one of the things happened was, so we found one ISP causing this significant drop, which was a Comcast. So we reached out to the Comcast and asked, well, what did you do? We see a significant, nice drop here. And then they said, yes, we did some campaign to, really reconfiguring the, devices, which is awesome, which is great, but nobody recognized it. They didn't press release or anything. So, ISPs doing a good things are not being recognized. That's, one of the things we're trying to change. So recognition of the good practice, good behavior. And then also, I talked about this comparison, comparing between ISPs, between countries. How are we doing? So those type of things, it's motivating and then giving you an awareness. Sure.
Yeah. So that's interesting to say that they changed the settings so their rates dropped, right?
Yes.
So, but that's done by the security people, and they would be not inclined to disclose that. The marketing people may have to.
Yeah.
Well, for security, you don't want to hang out.
Right, but we want. So this is one of the things we want the Comcast to come and speak what they did, and this is the impact. This is the business case, right? Those guys are, have a great stories to tell other ISPs. And we do not have that because nobody really speaks up about those things. Definitely, we want some third party recognize it, bringing them into the room like this, and then to speak out. There's a Netherlands case as well. There's one Netherlands ISP is dropping a significant systemic risks, and we reach out to them, ask what they do. Apparently, they did replacing the whole devices, the old device, the router, to the new equipment.
Oh, wow.
So that's another, things. But we want to know why. We do not want to, that's one of the reasons this is important to measure and in tracking. The other things to motivate probably a free tool, and then that's one of the open standard session Alan was leading this morning. The sixth blockage, I think, is a cost of the mitigation. If there's a free tools to download and do it, very easy to go. Okay, so I'm going to skip a little bit of the public healthcare approach to cyber because I think we discussed it on this. But understanding the root problem underlying environmental issues rather than just counting the patient's number or in a cyber, the incident is a key thing. Otherwise, we're going to continue to do the whack-a-mole instant response. So addressing the root causes, understanding what causes this incident, DDoS. Trek did a pretty good presentation about what causes the DDoS. And also the Christian's presentation mentioned a lot of other things. What we focus is amplification, DDoS. So we measure, we focus the recursive servers, and we measure that.
Actually, this is a nice model where we can all put our activities in which area do we contribute.
Exactly. So yeah, instant response is more like a search, understanding the translation vector, more security, community, environmental conditions. This is really policy and network operators.
We should be able to talk about manners. I think that's clearly an environmental change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and an environmental is not just a technical thing. It is including the environment as our education, users awareness, policymakers involvement. All that is in here. Hygiene is key to here as the environmental conditions. So here's some stakeholders. This is what we do, Cybergreen, and right now, again, we focus on the open recursive, how to reduce the systemic risks by measuring the recursive protocol. So we scan open servers like NTP, DNS, SSD, PSTP charging of the global network. So every country's every AS number, we produce the statistics of this a number of that open servers, recursives, and then publishing it. Inform network operators and policymakers, other stakeholders on the risk associated with hosting open systems. So this is what we measure. A little more deeper technical description, I don't think I need to explain here. This is our website, stats.cybergreen.net. Go use this website and click of your country or the country you're interested in. And then, or you can type in your name of the country and then you jump into the country page and then give you a number of the open recursives of the past 3 years. So you would see a nice time trend, which gives you some ideas of, hey, is your environment going more polluting environment or is it improving?
Yeah, so police speak. Now, I noticed that Africa is green, so that means we're doing fine.
No, it's
Well, green. It's settled.
So I'm trying to correlate this slide of what you measure with the next one. And in looking back at the previous slide, I see not the one that shows what you measure. That so there's OpenITP, OpenSNMP, OpenSDDP, SSDP,
and charging.
And what I think, for instance, if you look at the number of NTP servers we have in the continent, it's very, very low. So that could be contributing.
Sure.
If you think about the number of DNS servers, almost everyone else has gone to Google DNS. ISPs are no longer building their own DNS servers. Could that be a reflection of limited deployment of these services? Or as to why we look green, not because we're doing anything, but if we're actually deploying, we'll probably look worse than the US. There's a different.
So our statistics not normalized. So we simply counting the number of the IP counts. So if you take a look, yes, United States, China, Japan is pretty, a darker color. These tends to be, we have they have a larger nodes, internet nodes, larger devices connecting to internet. But one of the things that we think African continent is significant, important to this approach and an activity is this region is an emerging, fast developing region. There's a new development in so large number of, we're going to talk about the IoT. There's going to be significant, larger kinds and a number of devices deployed in this region. And then the network speed and the bandwidth is going to be significantly goes up with the satellite and cables start developing. So right now, this is the moment that you can still make sure work together to deploying those devices safely or proper configuration or having a right procurement policy, making sure the vendors are bringing the devices with the security setting and configuration. Once it's deployed, it's very difficult to change or mitigate it. That's why it is very difficult for those, Japan is suffering as well. I mean, Japan, we have a significant number of, for example, home routers, and then it is already deployed and shipped in the market. Once it's deployed, I can ask my parents to update the Wi-Fi router. Nobody. And then it's very difficult to doing much once it's shipped. So before it's deployed, we want to make sure that it's configured well, good. Before the ISPs are deploying the router, we want to make sure that it is shipped and deployed safely. And then it's still not too late in the African region. So before these start turning into yellow and red, we would definitely like to work with you to keep this systemic risk level low.
To follow on what Yuri said, this is an technical. And the result also may depend on where do you scan from. Okay? Because I think you do scan, okay, and sometimes because of the nature of the network, some of the LAN and some of the dysfunctional network we have, you may not have a full and complete view of what is going on.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so I'd love to have your help, Alan, to probably put one of our sensor African region to see a little more numbers. And then I was talking with Tarek. You guys have a similar data. We can cross-compare. But data, those global data sources, we should work together to cross-compare our data and see what we can do better. So there's a lot we can improve to collecting this data, the collecting method, how to make, what's the metrics, what's the right normalization factor. Are we going to normalize with the IP population, the number of the IP, GDP, whatever. But we need all of your views and ideas to improve this, so help us. Yes?
Yeah, so that's where I was going, because I was reading the methodology. So these data are absolute data. They are not,
Yes.
they are not so relative. That means a region with a low number of IP by default connected to code will be great anyway compared to the other one, because that is what it is. But when we start comparing the threat against the total number, we'll see that completely the reverse, probably. Because there are more potential devices who can conduct attack in small country because of the resources of bigger country. So I think that would be an interesting statistic to show, which can help policy makers to see, well, we have little, but that little, 90% of them are potential devices. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One last question.
One last question.
I have a question about the website itself.
Yeah.
Could you open the link again?
This one?
The web page
The
itself.
web page. It's very tricky to put this.
There's a graph there called DDoS AS source.
Here.
What does that mean?
So AS source is a distribution. So this is the whole number of IP address, and then this is the same thing. Left side is the OpenSMTP, whole number of IP in Japan, number of IP in Japan, and then same data here, but it shows the distribution of which ISPs are providing, contributing to that server, which ISPs providing unhealthy network, to be honest. So and then I have to apologize. Today, the data is a little broken. A reference data matching, providing the AS number to the name of the ISPs, name of the ASN is broken somehow. We're gonna have to fix it. Next 2 days, couple days, please take a look at it again. If you go, so for example, here you click this 9365, it says unknown, but usually it has a name of that ISPs in your country as well. Not just Japan, but every country. And you click this, and then you jump into AS 9365 Japan. Usually comes with the name of the ISP, and you would see this ISP's trend. And then with this, if you are regulators or CERT, you can go reach out to these ISPs and check, hey, what happened to this? Did you deploy a new devices? If so, you might want to check the configuration because you see this. So it's a good data and statistic for the CERT to work with the ISPs or regulators to work with the ISPs. So I would highly encourage you to, use this. Yeah. So quickly, do we have time or not? Very, very well.
Other speakers as well. That's why
Sure, okay, of course. Okay, good. Okay, so a lot of numbers here. So let's take a look. So Uganda, and then
not that little time.
so that was
Oh, sure.
5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. Okay, so go take a look at your country and then see how your ISPs are doing and then compare with that. I did a little bit of the Uganda ISP, and you go to the ASM, upload a number, and then you can select the ISPs you would like to show, and then can see this type of comparison between ISPs. Now, Kevin, I mentioned the CERT to go, reach out to ISPs. You have some materials, mitigation support material. I'm sure nationals of AfricaCERT might have this material, but we're a partner. AfricaCERT has this materials. This is free, so you can download this, and then it has a step-by-step how to identify those misconfigured devices, how to fix this, how to update this, reconfigure devices, monitoring this. A lot of the BCP's step-by-step processes in here. Just take a look at this and use it. Other things that I would encourage is, health check. So health checkup. Some of the countries, mandate to take the health checkup. I am lazy. I haven't done it for 3 years. But cyber, it is encouraged to, take a look at what's the, severe, not the, in a public healthcare analogy, disease. And maybe a little different in cyber, but you can say, okay, severe disease, we can say in cyber is like DDoS, right? So what is the underlying, systemic risks? And then what type of metrics and data out there? And you start collecting it. And when you start collecting it, you start having this epidemiological studies. And that would teach you what type of behavior is causing the systemic risk. The same thing, the Cybergreen has a partnership with the Packet Clear account, PCH, and GCA, Global Cyber Alliance. And then what we do is we try to do the annual national level cyber ecosystem health checkup. And it's not just Cybergreen data of measuring the systemic risks, but it's include other aspects as well. So for example, PCH has some nice data on the internet infrastructure, BGP ROR analysis. So that's again the best practices measurement, the recognition as well. So how many, how much of the IPs are deploying BGP ROR, and then they verified it, and then we produce the statistics to show to you. Email infrastructure. So GCA is pick a couple of domain names, working with your country, and pick the domain, and then they scan, and then check how many, how much percent of that critical infrastructure domains are deploying the DMARC policy. So we start measuring some of it. It's not the whole systemic risks of your healthy internet, but it's some. And then it's a starting point. And then we'd like to work with all of you to, try to expand the risk indicators or health checkup score. And then encourage you to use us to measure these type of checkups, to work with your ISPs and policymakers to set the right security policies. This health score sheet is, we put the policy recommendation as well. So overall, we did this type of analysis, and then at the end of the analysis, we're going to put, okay, it seems like you might want to deploy, regulators might want to work with the ISPs to help PCP 38, or DMARC free tool is here, this and that. So adding some recommendation to help you accelerate to improve the ecosystem health as well. So with that, hopefully this is useful to you, and feel free to reach out to me, and where there is, we can any help, we'd love to help you. So with that.
Thank you. There will be an opportunity to talk more about this and collaboration also in the third block after we've done IoT security matters and the rest of this. So, thank you, Yuri.
Thank you very much.
So now I invite Adiel.
I will use slide, but yeah. So I'll. So yeah, I will talk quickly about an initiative that ICANN has launched a few years back to do something in a little bit limited scope than what Cybergreen is doing, and associate this specifically to domain name abuse. So what we call DAAR. Yeah. So it is a measurement of threat that domain name registration and usage can have in terms of abuse. For those who are familiar with ICANN environments, you know that the term abuse itself is very controversial within the registry and registrar, to the point that actually right now there is a work on the way to try to define what abuse means, what actually does abuse mean. So that's a whole story by itself. But the DAAR initiative try to kind of go one step beyond what was there and say, well, we're going to take different type of data, especially from the RBL, the block list. We'll pull all the data and analyze all the threats that those block lists see. We'll take the WHOIS data as well, and we'll take the zone files. And we'll merge all of those data and see which TLD, mainly GTLD, not CCTLD. And by the way, if you're interested, you can provide your CCTLD data and that can be added. But currently looking only at the GTLD, which GTLD pose some abuse threats to the ecosystem right now. How many of them are we seeing in the RBL list? How often? And the idea of DAAR is not to take a picture at a very specific time, but to analyze the threat, to see how is this evolving by domain name, by GTLD, TLD, but also by registry and registrar. Where are we seeing botnets? Where are we seeing command and control, for instance? How are those registries taking measure to mitigate that? Again, as I said, for many of those registries, what they don't want is for ICANN to use that data to kind of enforce the contractual relationship that they have with ICANN, because there are several reasons behind it. So clearly, DAAR is not a tool used by compliance at ICANN. It's completely separated. This is the research work. It is published every month since January 2018, and it provides those statistics. It tries to see what has been changing over time, and what we expect is for the registry themselves to use the data now to define policy. Now they are working on defining abuse. They are probably going to go back to this and say, hey, you are measuring spam, you are measuring botnet, you are measuring command and control, etc. But we think spam is not part of this. But if you look at the statistic, more than 60% of the threats that are reported by the RBL list are spam related. Registry and registrar will tell you, well, for us, spam is not an abuse, because you can the recipient of an email can consider something as spam, but the sender does not consider it as spam. So the term abuse is not equally the same from where you position it. So, but by looking at the data and the reality on the ground, RBL blocked domain name based on spam. So how can we find the common ground in that definition? So the data can help in the definition of abuse because we are measuring concrete data, showing that spam is there, spam is impacting the reliability or the reputation of your domain, for instance. So that is one of the reasons, and we keep hammering that message clearly that the DAAR data are not used for compliance reasons, but are tools that you as a registrant that we are can use to define those policies. You can go to the ICANN website, actually, www.icann.org/DAAR, DAAR, and see all the reports. They are monthly reports. We don't make any conclusion from the data. We just take the data, merge them, and publish the trend that we are seeing. Does it measure all kind of abuse? No. We use the most prominent one, which are, as I mentioned, spam, command and control, botnet distribution, malware, and phishing. Those are the four elements of abuse on domain name that we measure. And for sure, taking this data, merging it with what Cybergreen is doing, and measuring with other type of abuse measurement related to IP address, for instance, will help give a more holistic view of what really is happening. How is this tie the different identifiers together? How those abusers are using the identifier together to achieve their goal. And this kind of information are critical as well for policymakers because it gives them on-ground information with very precise data. So the DAAR team is actively engaging with the community right now to collect feedback on what they have seen so far, to try to refine and narrow some of their measurement methodology. One of the suggestions, for instance, that comes from the community is to extend the list of block lists that we use currently to add other. Some want to remove some block lists from the data that we are doing. So there is a second phase where the reputation lists are going to be refined, and we are actually going to hire an independent consultant to analyze the data that we are getting, to make sure that the way we are using them matches the goal that we have. It's not done in a way to kind of steer the conclusion or steer the what we are seeing into a certain direction. I can want to be as much as neutral as possible in the way it presented the outcome of the report. So there is no formal consultation at this AIS event, but expectedly for upcoming AIS event, there will be someone from the DAAR team to engage with the community in Africa to see how they can contribute into that. As I mentioned, one of the data that the team will be pretty much interested to have is anything related to CCTLD. Now we are focused on GTLD because it's easy for us to have access of GTLD information, but there are some interesting data that can be used as well from the CCTLD perspective. So to kind of being able to drill down this abuse reporting more into to country level and make it even more useful for policymakers at the local level. So that's what I can say briefly about DAAR. If you are interested to join the project and provide information, all the contacts are on the website, or any feedback can also be sent directly to the team in charge of one of the next steps of the project as well is to be able to consolidate all the threat and the trend seen over the past year, put them together and see where is it going. Is DAAR helping registrar and registrar to take corrective action onto the abuse that they are seeing in their domain? Yes or no? Because we have seen sometimes that, from, in a matter of 3 months, the threat that a certain domain name or registry poses to the system drops significantly. And by digging, we have seen that it's because they've seen that their reputation is impacted by the information that is shared through the DAAR, and they take corrective action. And they register and register themselves. They prefer that approach than using it as a compliance what they sign as contracts. They operate by those contracts, but they don't want to be beaten because we are measuring. They prefer to have access to the data, take corrective action, and be compliant instead of using the stick against them. So that seems to be working, and actually the DAAR team is going to allow some of the registry and registrar to have private access to the DAAR data, replicate what is there, and see where or how they are doing over the past period of time. So this is very specific to domain name then, and as I mentioned, we try to keep it within the scope of ICANN mission in general. That's it for that question. Okay. Anyone has already looked at DAAR in the past? Play with it a little bit? Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah.
Well, many of those systems, just like what Yuri was saying too, it becomes more useful if it's used. It becomes better because you can make it better because of the feedback, and it gets used because people think it starts to matter. So it's how to get to the critical mass. Right?
Yes. So do you have any question on DAAR or on abuse related to domain name? Any kind of question in that area? Yes.
How is this correlate with the identifier?
Yeah, so those are two completely separate projects. The ITHI, which is Internet Health Indicator, tend to take a more holistic approach, and it identifies some critical, I would say, safety, security aspect of the internet. The ITHI is trying to use some of the data as one of their indicators as well, by saying, well, abuse is one indicator of the overall health of the internet. If people use domain name to conduct attack or share malware, etc., it is an aspect of health, but it's just one. Why ITHI cover much more indicator, much more health system. So they are working to do that. There's a third project as well, which is the Open Data Initiative, which is going to use all those data, both ITHI data and DAAR data, and publish them as open data so that anyone can play. So the three projects work together, but provide a different type of information for different projects. Yep. Yes, you are talking about this ICANN open data project. Where is this project actually? It's progressing very well. It has moved from the tests and prototyping step to community input. And where it is specifically right now is how to identify new data that the community wants ICANN to publish. What are the processes to, identify the data, to add it to the Open Data Initiative, or remove it from the Open Data Initiative, and who and where to collect those data. It's specifically how to evolve the Open Data Initiative. The initiative itself is very well matured. All the tools are in place. It's just to make sure that the community input is added into it so that when it's launched, it becomes something that is very automatic.
Because I remember we did some comments almost 1 year back.
Yeah. Most of the comments have been taken into consideration, and if you go to the Open Initiative page, you will see the response to all the comments that the community has provided. And because the project has evolved a lot since.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.